So welcome everybody to the February 2021 Twin Cities Tableau User Group meeting. We have a pretty fun agenda today. We'll do get to know a member like we always do. And then we have Brad Kanter, who's gonna tell us how he uses Tableau to become a better swimmer, which I'm curious where you're doing that these days. And then we have Charles Holm, who is going to give us some tips on performance when you have live connections, but like in the context of real world situations, not like these perfect scenarios that we oftentimes see. And then if we have time, we can get into some best thing I learned slash group therapy. And if you're new to our group, that's essentially when we open it up to the community. And if someone has learned something that they're like, oh man, this I figured out how containers, or that I can right click and copy formatting, whatever it is, like the tiniest little thing that has saved you some time, or that you wish you knew 6 months ago. Those are the kinds of things that we'd love for you to just take 30 seconds and share. And then the other piece of that is if you are struggling with something, if you're stuck on something and you want to share the circumstances of your issue out with the broader community, we have a pretty good track record of being able to provide some solid solutions for people who are brave enough to share their struggles. So that's what that component is about. All right, so let me jump forward. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Serena Roberts, one of the leaders here for the Twin Cities Tableau User Group. And then I also have Trisha, whose video is off, I think. Trisha Duncan is also on the meeting and leads the Tableau User Group with me as well. We have like 6 other people that help also, and they are conveniently absent today. So we'll have to send them a nasty note later. Mark your calendars. I try to scrounge through Meetup and dig out some useful, relevant events between now and our next meeting. So I'll paste these into the chat. You can find all of these on Meetup if you just search for the title, and you can sign up there. I'll call out that we do need one more presenter for the March tug, and that's on March 25th. We have a guy from the Radisson Hotel Group who's going to present his presentation that he gave at I think it was TC19, because that was like the last one that was actually there, on introduction to LOD calcs. So, all right. If anybody has any other announcements about events that they want to share, job, if you're hiring for a position, if you're looking for a position, now is your moment to unmute yourself and give us a holla. Or chat if you're shy. Mm-hmm.
I will say for our She Talks Data book club event that's happening on March 24th, we're reading Find Your Fierce. And Teresa, the author, will be joining us during that call. So that's kind of extra cool.
Extra cool. You guys did that the last time, right?
Yeah, we're on a roll with authors come to our group. Yes.
That's sweet. I'm so bummed I missed that last one, but I had too much crap going on. All right. Last call for shout outs. Don't be shy. This is part of the reason why we're here, is to share this kind of information with each other.
Ooh, we're up to 70 folks. That's pretty awesome.
Yes. That was my prediction. Okay, I was on a call recently. Awkward silences are okay to a point, but I was on a call recently where it was like this guy asked, does anybody have any questions? And it was the longest, most awkward silence ever. And he like literally was quiet until somebody asked the question. And it was probably like a minute and a half. And I was like, is this genius or evil? And I'm like half tempted to do that right now, but all right, I'll spare you. I'll save it for March. How about that? Okay, let's jump into our get to know a member. So we have two options. We can take volunteers, someone who can just unmute themselves and say, start answering these questions. I don't think we have the ability to raise hands in our in the Zoom meeting format, so you have to just unmute yourself and start talking. Otherwise, I will parse through the participant list and mercilessly pick someone. So I want to wait a few seconds to see if anyone wants to volunteer.
I can go if you guys can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay. So my name.
Oops, sorry. Let me bring the questions back. There you go.
Thank you. Yep. So my name's Pete Kataris. I'm here in Minneapolis, so I've just moved from Chicago a couple years ago. I work for GED testing services. So I'm their principal data analyst. So I do a little bit of the finances actually. I have an MBA, so I get into the financial forecasting, but then also look at all our user data and how they test, where they drop off, and try to give insights as to what products do we need to keep people working towards their GED. We just went through our first migration of Tableau. So I've been using it for about a year, got certified. I forgot the middle one, which I don't know, I've fallen in love with it. So I think what I'm good at is probably, probably dual axis charts in general. I learn a lot on these, so I find out more and more stuff that I just try to work on. And then I struggle with, is it table? No, not table calc. It's like the window functions. If you look back and look forward and all those, I don't fully understand those yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that can be tricky. Is your employer a part of Pearson?
It is, yep. So
Okay.
that's our parent company, and then
Gotcha.
we use their technology to deliver the GED
Okay.
test.
Do you know Brianna Johnson? I feel like she's on the team.
If she's at Pearson, yeah, she's maybe at the bigger Pearson. Unfortunately, no, I don't.
She's in the GED testing services. Anyway, I'll chat later about it. All right, well, welcome to the Twin Cities Tableau user group and the Twin Cities itself. We are happy to have you, and thank you for volunteering. Let's do one more. I think I saw Mandy, you like raised your hand. I don't know if that was because you were just trying to prove to me that the functionality was available or that you wanted to volunteer.
I was clapping for Pete for volunteering, but
oh, it's a clap. Okay, I thought it was like a raised hand. Okay,
but I would be happy to go if you want me to go.
Please do.
Hi everybody, I'm Mandy. I work for Wilder Research. I am a data analyst there. So we do a lot of program evaluation for nonprofits and some stuff like that. We do not currently use Tableau, but I have a license now. I'm trying to bring it in. So I'm back here now too. I'm trying to get the researchers to ask us to use it. So hopefully in the next couple months, I'll be saying that we're using it for projects, but currently not so much. The kind of data that we would be analyzing with Tableau, we do a lot of surveys, some small for small programs, some large state surveys. We pull data from the Census Bureau. We get all kinds of data. Sometimes programs just have their own data and they kind of just throw it at us. I've been using Tableau for a little over 2 years now. What am I good at with Tableau? I think what I'm good at and what I enjoy the most is having to blend a lot of data sets. I like to use just the normal Tableau blending tools, but I do like the what is it called?
Prep. Tableau prep.
Yeah, prep. I like to use Tableau prep too, but I like to kind of do it on my own in some ways also.
Have you used the noodle yet, or the little relationship guy? Yes,
like in the normal, just in Tableau desktop, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, and so I really enjoy working with a lot of data sets, and I think I'm pretty good at blending things. It depends what it is. Recently, I got into more geocoding things because I was helping with a project that I had to blend geocoded data with other data, and that was pretty fun.
Awesome.
Let's see, and what tail feature functions do I struggle with? Well, I just don't get to use it that much. So I'm studying for the first certificate, the associate, I think it is.
Mhm.
And I was just going over the test question examples. You know, I'm kind of just gonna wing it, but I I went over the examples,
Love
and I didn't realize you could just group in the viz. I had never done that. I would only build groups like through drop downs and building them, and they were just showing an example of selecting two and making a group, and I had never done that. So I guess there's some little things that had I not done it before, little simple things, I don't know it exists. So there's
Yeah.
probably a lot of tricks for me to learn.
Wow, that would be like a great best thing I learned. You could just, you know, control or even shift and just grab a big bunch of things and group them together right there.
And it's a little cute and in the name, and it's like this and this. It was really nice. I really liked it.
Cute. All right, thanks for sharing, Mandy.
No problem.
Okay, that's my last slide. So I think I have Brad up first. Brad, are you ready?
I guess so. I'm ready as I'm gonna be.
Ready or not, you are up.
Okay. Well, thanks for thanks for the lead-in. And it was great for the get to know yous. Thanks, Pete and Mandy, for introducing yourselves. So I'm going to talk today about how Tableau is improving my swimming. I know it sounds like a topic that doesn't make any sense, but it will when I'm done presenting. I think you'll see where I'm coming from. But before I start, I just want to introduce myself and my company, if that's okay. I do see a couple of my coworkers sign on to the TC Tug. Thanks for supporting me, you guys. Appreciate it. But about just real quick about me and the company, I have a, let's see if I can share this here. Share screen. So I put together a little presentation in Tableau about that. Well, it's one slide, so it's not really that fancy, but I work for a company called MIDCO. MIDCO is short for Mid-Continent Communications. We're a internet service provider, cable TV company in the North and South Dakota area, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Kansas. We have almost 500,000 customers, and we're kind of in that mid-sized range where we have almost 2,000 employees and not quite $1 billion in sales. So we're not like the big companies in the Twin Cities like Target, Unite Health Group, but we're also not small little 20-person private company that doesn't have a data team. So we're kind of in that middle area, I guess. And then about me, I've got a little show hide button here. If I can, oops. So there's me and a little, well, maybe if I can do that on the full screen, that would look better. Hold on. Oh, you know what? The Zoom controls kind of hide that. So, all right, well, anyway, I'm the director of the team. I used to work in Gander Mountain and Target. And at the bottom here, it says personal. I swim on an adult swim team. So that's kind of your first hint of what I'm going to talk about. Anyway, I'm going to stop sharing real quick and I'll get back to that in a minute. I do want to mention that my team will have you asked for people who had open positions coming up, and we're going to have 2 open positions that are going to be posting soon. One's going to be a financial analyst position, and another one's a summer intern position. So if you or someone you know is interested in learning more, just contact me afterwards. Anyhow, now onto the swimming. I don't really have a good way to ask the audience, but Mandy did show us that the raise hand feature does work. So I want to just ask the group if there's anybody out there that does swim regularly for exercise or competition or anything like that, just to kind of get to know like who's out there. Is anybody out there that kind of does this stuff? I do see 2 people, three hands. That's wonderful. Okay, so 3 people do swim. Cool. Well, I'm hoping to get some tough questions from you. The second thing I want to ask, if there's anybody here who doesn't know how to swim, or maybe maybe they struggle with swimming. Maybe you can't get across the pool from one side to the other. Or if you're shy, you don't need to say. That's okay. You might not want to raise your hand in front of everybody. I just want to mention before I get into the Tableau viz that I volunteer with an adult learn to swim program, and once a year we have a once a week for 5 weeks we teach adults who don't know how to swim how to do that. So if you or someone you know needs to learn how to swim or get more confident with your swimming, please reach out to me. It could save your life one day. I'm deadly serious that that's kind of the impact it can have. So just wanted to mention that. Finally, I'm going to move on to the swimming presentation. Okay, so which is kind of the point here. So let me share screen again. Share screen. There we go. So I put together this dashboard, okay, about swimming. Okay, it's not oops, hold on 1 second. I'm just covering up my notes, which is not good. There we go. Yeah, anyhow, I'm just for my background, like a lot of you guys, my background is like 100% Excel. Like I've spent years working in Excel. And I have a joke about that. So anyhow, I've also been tracking my swimming for years in an Excel spreadsheet. You could say that I'm swimming in data. I know everyone's on mute, but I can tell everyone's laughing. That's a funny one, huh? Swimming in data. That was my swimming joke. Okay. But what I've done to continue to learn is that if I've come across like a new function in Excel or like a new chart technique, I've tried this out in my swimming Excel file. It's sort of a place to explore and try new things and like, hey, maybe I can try that in a new tab here. Sometimes the stuff you learn isn't really relevant to your day-to-day at work, you know, like if you don't work with geographical data, for example, you might want to work on some geographical data with something else. But anyway, that's kind of my background a little bit about why this is all there, that I swim, I use Excel, I've been tracking in Excel. I try to take my Excel-based swimming tracker and then to put it into Tableau, right? That's what this kind of project is. So I first want to get started, just kind of walk you through what I did. I mean, this isn't meant to be like the greatest Tableau report in the world. I'm not great at Tableau. I consider myself like a beginner to intermediate. But you know, what I've tried to do is take some of the things I've learned from this group and from the conference and stuff and put it into one dashboard. So the first thing, as you can see, is I put a bunch of KPIs at the top with those big A numbers. You know, I'm kind of too shy to say it, but the bands, right? You know, so that's across the top, and they've got like a comparison to goal and last year. So like the first one here is practices per week. I've been getting into the pool like almost 4 times a week. We were closed down twice for extended periods over the last 12 months, but we reopened again in I think it was like the first week of January. So this year was pretty good. Yeah, because anyway. So we've had a lot of downtime. So, and to make this like more relevant for like Tableau users, so for the KPIs, I'll tell you kind of how these were created. And this is kind of, I just want to give credit first to Greg Gallardi. He's on the call. I can tell. I saw Greg, you signed in here. I basically copied how Greg did this on one of his dashboards for the NCAA, but he will tell you that he learned how to do it from from a tessellation presentation that Luke Stanky had given at some point, because Luke has done some KPI work, but it's essentially using the dragging all your pills onto the label card and then formatting like one of them really big and then the other ones not so big. I mean, this is all in Tableau Public, so you can download mine and learn how I did it, or you could download one of Luke's blogs about KPIs and copy him too. I mean, there's lots of ways to copy. You know, when you're in school, copying is called plagiarism, but this is the real world, and this is like best practices, right? It's all about copying. Anyway,
It's not copying if you give credit, Brad. You're good.
It's not copying if you've read. That's good. And that will help you only so far, I guess. But yes. So I have given credit, so I feel comfortable with that. Thank you for giving me that, clearing me there. So another thing that I did here, which I was super excited about, is using an overlay. That's one of my favorite new Tableau tricks. Okay, I learned that at a Tableau conference presentation at the virtual conference this past fall. And I'm gonna give a shout out to Sadale McCall. He's the one who gave the presentation. So I've got this little commentary button, and look at that, a little tooltip comes up, says click here for my commentary. You could call this instructions or insights, observations, whatever you want to do. I call it commentary because I couldn't think of a better word, I guess. But the technique is you basically have a bunch of comments in the background, and I don't know, Tableau Public just took a minute there. There we go. So here's all my comments, and basically it gives you like an overlay for your dashboard. It's a great technique. It uses like a show hide button, and it creates this like shaded overlay where you can write comments about the whole thing. And I just love it because like a new user is going to have a whole bunch of questions when they see a report. Everybody does, like, hey, have you thought of that? Why is this happening? You know, what does this mean? But an overlay allows you to get all their questions, maybe not most of their questions answered, okay? But then when you're like done answering the questions, you can go back and then it cleans the whole thing up. So you like might want to know like, well, what's going on in January and February? And you're like, okay, well, last year I was off to a great start in the year, and then COVID shut down the pools. So like in 2020, there's like no swimming in March, April, and May, but there's a ton in January and February. In fact, I'm not even up to last year's totals right now, which is kind of sad. Or you might look at one of these other charts and wonder something else, but there's all these comments that you can make about your viz. Anyhow, that's the overlay. Love it. Great technique. It's also good for defining like KPIs. Like if you're using a bunch of acronyms at work to like say what metrics are, you know what? Remember that a lot of people don't know those acronyms. They might not work in your department. They might be new to the company. Put an overlay in and just define them all, because you don't want to put them on there all the time. But for that new user, they definitely need to see it. Okay, what else? What I would say here? Okay, so anyway, that's the overlay. The last thing I want to mention is that there's a bunch of graphs on the bottom, and this is kind of like what I used to do in Excel. I like had all this tracking, and then I had like a graph that showed by month like how I was doing. And you know, with Tableau, you can kind of make it really cool looking with colors. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you guys know how Tableau works. It's not like you guys are new here. But I've got this like metric where you can change it by, you know, like this is practices per week, like how often I'm going, and you can see if there's like a seasonality to everything. I mean, it's kind of hard with COVID, but that's, you know, you got 2 years ago in 2019 here. Or yards per practice. So maybe some of the swimmers can tell me if this is kind of like something that would resonate with them. You know, are you tracking your yards, or I don't know if you guys are tracking this at all, but anyhow.
Hey, Brad, do you take that, like, is the distance and whatnot and like the time, is all that tracked by some sort of like biometric device that you're wearing, like a watch, or like how where does that come from? What's the?
Yeah, good question. I do wear an Apple Watch, and it's the waterproof version. So when I start swimming, I just click the start button, and it does track like how long I've swam. But today's a good example. I swam 2,900 yards. The watch said 2,800. The watch was wrong. So the
So you
reason the watch
you
was,
get to override if it's wrong.
well, I mean, that data uploads to like some health app that I have, but I just basically, when I'm walking to my car, I open up like an Excel file on my Google Drive, and I just type in, how many yards I swam. It's pretty simple like that. So on my phone, and I don't have to do anything. For Tableau, I've got to open up the Tableau file because Tableau Public does not update automatically. So if I want to update this file, I need to open up Tableau Desktop and just click refresh data. It links out to the Google Drive, and then I got to okay it, because you have to, okay your Google Drive, I guess, linking, and then a couple clicks later, you're done. So in 1 minute, I can update, the data when I'm sitting down, but I don't update the Tableau report every day. But the reason the watch doesn't work is because we did a kick set. I swim with a coach. So there's different types of masters groups, like adult swimmers. Some of them have coaches. Some people just swim with a group and don't have a coach. And some people swim by themselves and don't have a coach or friends either. And I'm not that you don't have friends, but like when you swim with a group, it's more fun than swimming by yourself. That's my opinion. Like anything you do in life, if you do it with other people, it's more fun than doing it by yourself. That's just my personal opinion about that. But yeah, so we had a kick set today. So I did, I think it was like, I guess it must have been like 100 yards of kicking. So the watch doesn't track a kick set because your hands are steady. It doesn't know you're kicking. So there's some weaknesses to using a tracker like a watch or something. But yeah, there's all sorts of people. There's people that have like the really expensive Garmin watches, and there's like a Garmin app that tracks all sorts of stuff, like strokes per lap, if you want to track that. There's a new set of goggles that has the data in the goggles. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that. There's like, you swim and then it tells you like what pace you're doing. So there's some really cool stuff out there, but this is sort of like what I want to track, because I want to hit a certain miles per at the end of the year. Like a few years ago, I did the 1 mile per day thing where I did 365 miles by the end of the year. But my goal for this year is to do 240. And in order to hit that goal, I've got to do, 2.7 practices per week at 3,000 yards, and then I'll hit it. So that's how the goals are all set up to get that overall mileage goal. Yeah. So takeaways for the group. First of all, I just want to strongly encourage you guys to think about your hobbies, whatever things you're interested in outside of work, and go find some data, go find some analytics about it. If you like to drink beer, you might use the Untapped app where you rate beers, and there's other people that drink beer and talk about their beer. Potential employers might think you're an alcoholic, but it's a fun thing to track, and you can see, if you liked a beer in the past you've tried. You could recreate something you've seen online about something you're interested in, or you could grab a data set that's out there. But the cool thing is, if you find something that you personally are interested in, it could be the music you listen to on Spotify or the shows you watch on Netflix. You're going to really know the data really well. You're going to understand the anomalies, like why your yards per practice on Thursdays in November are really high. I mean, what's up with that? Like, the average Thursday in November is higher than all the other days of all the other months. Or I guess there's also this anomaly here, but I know exactly why that happened because I'm the one doing it. Like once a year, there's this big fundraiser for Second Harvest Heartland, and we all swim for 2.5 hours. And, that just kind of skews all the data. So if you're the one, if it's about you, you're going to know what's up and why it looks like that. So it makes it kind of fun. Anyway, that's all the presentation. I know it went kind of quick, but
was
There's all
great.
there's that hand feature in Zoom if you guys want to ask questions.
Brad, also, so Sam Appley says that with Google Drive, you can schedule a daily refresh on Tableau Public.
Sweet.
So
Sam, I will reach out to you and find out how to do that.
yeah. And Noelle says, I'm a runner and I would love to do something like this for my stats. But I think you're absolutely right. And whenever people ask me like, how do I start using Tableau? Like, how do I break into this space starting from zero? Like that's usually my advice is like, find something that you give a crap about, something that you have a natural interest in, find some data, whether it's data you created yourself, and bring it in there, because that subject matter expertise will be your intrinsic motivation to keep exploring and keep learning and all, rather than just here's a superstore data set, who cares? Anyway, thank you very much, Brad. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and just shout them out.
Hey, Brad. Well, I just wanted to say that this really inspired me because I've been planning on doing something like this for a while I don't know if you've ever heard of a bujo. I learned about this from my 16-year-old cousin, but she keeps one. But you just track habits. So I do it in my work planner and then I just put it in Excel, and I've been planning to build something with it, tracking like how many hours of sleep you get and like positive habits that you're trying to form or whatever. And so you can look for, like you were saying, look for correlations between like when it's happening and when it's not, and other things that you're doing and stuff like that. But it's beautiful, and thanks for sharing.
Well, that's awesome.
What is it called, Mindy? A bujo?
So it's a bullet journal.
Okay.
And if you look it up on Pinterest, you'll see a lot of examples. Some of
Nice.
them look like middle schoolers made them because they did. But some other people, adults like I, maybe do them in Excel.
Indeed. Wow.
But yeah, it's fun. I don't know. I'm into tracking health habits and stuff like that too. And it's a good excuse to build a Tableau dashboard.
Absolutely.
I think in January.
I feel cooler now just knowing that word. Sorry, what?
I was just gonna say, especially at the start of the year, you're like New Year's resolution, like eat better, sleep more, and work out more. I mean, I do that every year. I kind of start over again and just get into the pool a lot in January and February.
Well, and I'm sure you'll see things like, like if I drink during the weekdays, I don't exercise as much on the weekdays, like those kinds of things. So I feel like it's, yeah.
No, I like the idea of a bullet journal, not so much for, I mean, maybe one day building a Tableau dashboard on it, but I think it's just helpful for habits. What, I see a hand raised. Look at that. Shar.
Hello, yes, that's me. It's kind of painful to look at the lack of green bars. I remember those months when the pools were closed, so I remember how good it felt to get back into one. I was wondering, the overlay that you designed, I think that looks really, really cool. And sometimes when I try to build something that looks really cool on my own, I find it takes me, I don't have a good sense of how complicated it is. So how complicated was it to build that?
Oh my God. It's really not complicated at all. What I did was I watched Sadale's presentation at the Tableau conference, and then, sitting here watching it online, right? So I wasn't at the virtual conference. But then I watched it again, and I basically opened up an Excel file, and I'm happy to send it to you if you want. It's just, I basically wrote down each step one at a time. I kind of paused the film over and over again and just wrote down like, okay, open up PowerPoint, pause. And then next one was like, okay, insert a text box, pause, third one, select a font that matches what you have in Tableau. Okay, then I'm stumped because I'm using Tableau book. And I'm like, well, there is no Tableau book in PowerPoint. So I Googled that and found, you can use like Helvetica or a couple of Avenir that looks for Dana. They all look a little bit like Tableau book, just step by step. And it's really not hard. You basically do it in PowerPoint, save it as an image. And then in the show hide button, you basically insert your image into your Tableau dashboard again. So it's actually really easy. And once you do it once, it's really easy the next time. Yeah, the hardest part was probably figuring out what font to use.
So your overlay, Brad, is an image you created in PowerPoint. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's 100% PowerPoint. So actually step one is you take your dashboard, and in Tableau, you can export an image of your dashboard. So it exports a PNG file of your Tableau image. Then you go into PowerPoint, you import that PNG file, and then you create an overlay that has the same exact width and height. And then you set your overlay as a box with like 30% shading, so you can kind of see through it a little bit. And then you start, you start going to town with the text boxes. You can add a circle, add little arrows, and but if anyone's interested, I don't know how to share with the group, but I did write down step by step like how to do this, and it has a link to his video.
Yeah, well, you could chat it. If you have the link, you could chat it in the chat box, Brad. Also, Pete, I'm sorry if I butcher your last name, Pete. It's Kanter. He also posted a link in the chat as well to a blog post that he followed to build an overlay. But
you want to post your own Tableau public so people can download this as well?
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah. Yep. Brad, yours is on Tableau public, right?
Mine is on Tableau public. You can, if you search for like my name or swimming or something, you'll find it. I mean, there's other people that track their swimming, but they're tracking like different stuff, like the racing times or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there's also a LinkedIn. So the Twin Cities Tableau user group has a LinkedIn group page, whatever you want to call it. And that can be a good place to just dump resources and links to different useful things. So feel free to do that. Brad or anyone else on the meeting. Okay, let's anyone else have any last burning questions for Brad before we move on to Charles?
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. That was great.
That was awesome.
Appreciate you volunteering. All right, Charles, are you ready?
I'm as ready as I'm going to be. I'm having a dashboard issue. It's not loading right now. But other than that, well, the good news is I've got like 10, 15 minutes of slides. So hopefully this will fix itself while I'm going through this slide.
You're selling us on this presentation.
I'm doing the best that I can, right? You're the one who asked for a volunteer, not me.
All right. If you need more time, we can do another get to know a member if you want to wait.
I don't need any more time. I do need to figure out how to share my screen again. Now
So
that
green
I've gone into full
button.
screen mode. Screen 2, there we go. So,
okay, we can't see it yet.
you can't see it yet. It says that I'm sharing. Maybe not yet.
Something's happening. There we go.
Okay. There we go. That's my dashboard that's not loading. We'll see how that goes. But presentation. So thank you for the opportunity to share today. I'm going to be talking about performance tuning and what that means in like the real world, not as Serena mentioned, optimized data sources, etc. So who am I? My name is Charlie. Serena calls me Charles, but that means that I'm in trouble. I am a senior business analyst at Boston Scientific. I'm the father of 3 now, my youngest being over the shoulder of my wife there, kind of staring off. I'm also a dog lover. I'm a Wisconsin Badger. And I've been using Tableau for a little over 8 years, give or take. I consider myself an advanced user, but nothing spectacular by any means. And then, like I said, I'm going to talk a little bit about performance tuning today, but first I want to talk about what is performance. Right? So it's both relative and it's absolute, right? It's relative in that some people think that 30 seconds is amazing. For others, 10 seconds is a huge failure. sometimes dashboards, load in 1 or 2 seconds, and that's even a failure, depending on the use case, right? So understanding what is considered performance by your audience is key, but it's also absolute. Performance is restricted by your network connection, by where your data lives, by who's using it, by their hardware, by Tableau server. There are 100 different things that really go into performance, and it can only get so fast, right? So understand what your constraints are so that you can set realistic expectations. But why would I do this? First and foremost, performant dashboards really up the user experience. I used to be a patient person, right? And now I see a spinning wheel and I freak out, right? Like, why isn't Netflix instantly loading? Why can't I, download this song in under a second? I don't know why I've gotten so impatient, but I have, and the rest of the world is impatient. So making something that acts fast and responds fast is important for the user experience. Also, for those of us who are doing this in a work setting, it really helps to conserve resources. At Boston Scientific, we've got almost 20,000 server users right now. We've got just under 1,000 desktop keys. And we have one server instance, right? It's a very large server instance, but the longer it takes my dashboard to render, the worse the experience is for somebody else. So understanding that I have a limited pool of resources and that I need to be responsible and respectful of everyone else who's using those same resources, that's a good reason to tune for performance. Also, performance really keeps the user in the flow. They spend less time worrying about their data or what's loading or why it's loading, and they tend to get to insights faster. And if you're not using Tableau to deliver insights, you're not using Tableau. So that's my little kind of preaching moment. There are two kinds of connection in Tableau, for those of you who don't know. There's extracts and there's a live connection. Extracts are optimized for Tableau. If you haven't seen the hypa from Tableau conference 2017, I want to say, go and find that video. It's totally worth watching a German man jump up and down on stage. But extracts are optimized for Tableau, and they can be lightning fast, right? Also, you're only pulling the data once. So the concept of really querying that data or having to go to a source system and rely on the speed of that source system is it's limited, right? So you're only pulling the data once. You only have to worry about that constraint once. The advantages of live, your data, when it updates, it flows automatically into Tableau. You don't have to refresh an extract or worry about stale data or anything failing. If you're connected and new data arrives, new data shows up in your Tableau dashboard. And it only pulls the data that you need. So we'll get into this here in some of my demos, but I work with data sets that have millions and millions and millions of rows. And often I only need 100,000 of them. So an extract would take all of those rows and bring them over. The live connection only queries what I need. So why do we use live at Boston Scientific? We manage all of our row level security within our database itself, and extracts make that challenging. Now, it used to be almost impossible with Tableau. They've changed their extracts so that you can extract tables separately and then join those together after the fact. But for the most part, our old security model or our existing security model created quite the Cartesian product, right? If I'm talking about 50 million rows and 7,000 users who may have access to some or all of those rows, the extract size got way too large, way too quickly, no matter what level we aggregated at. Also, our security tables are centrally managed, right? So any changes made there with a live connection, again, automatically propagate through to the dashboard. It also allows us to govern content access and data access independently. I don't know how many of you have tried to do row level security in Tableau. It is possible, right? It is feasible to do it, but it becomes cumbersome. It's challenging, and if you've got more than 5 users, right, you're spending more time managing your security than actually building anything. So separating the two allows me to talk about who has access to which reports, independent of what data they have access to in those reports. And that can be very useful as well when you talk about creating a suite of reports for a broad audience throughout your organization, rather than having to create filtered sets for 4 different groups and 4 different reports. Now you've got one report, and it manages itself. So what are the components of performance? There are 4 main components. We've got data design, which has the greatest impact, filtering, calculations, and layout. And we'll talk a little bit in depth about each of these. So let's start with data design. I think that this is roughly 50% of where you get your performance when it comes to live connections. Because of that, it's the single most important factor. Basically, the less data you have to pull into Tableau or query at any time, the faster your report's going to be. So we look to limit the data that's coming through, both in terms of the number of columns and the number of records. So if you don't need a column, there's a way to hide that and not bring that in, so that Tableau doesn't consider that in its query. And obviously, anything you can do to reduce the number of records is great. We do that through data source filters, sometimes custom SQL. Also, when combining data sets, joining from the same database tends to be more efficient than a blend. Not all the time, but it tends to be. And certainly, even some cross-database joins are more efficient than a blend. Also, minimizing the number of joins is helpful. So as you think about what you're doing, what your dashboard is trying to accomplish, think about grabbing the smallest amount of data to make that possible. The next greatest impact, in my opinion, is filtering and how you filter. On par with calculations, we'll get to that in just a second, but about 20% of your performance is how you filter the data. So there are many different ways to filter in Tableau, but if you can think about minimizing the number of filters, especially that you display or give users access to, that ups performance. Using action filters instead of quick filters, it does 2 things. Really, it speeds up performance, but it also engages your user in the dashboard itself. Utilizing context filters when possible and when needed. I'll show the order of operations here in a couple of slides, but context filters filter sooner than dimensional filters. And if you can eliminate a large chunk, say 25% or more of your data, a context filter is very effective. Avoid only relevant values. In my business use cases, everyone wants 8 different hierarchies to filter, and they want all of them to be relevant values. And then they complain that their dashboard is slow, right? Well, 20 seconds out of the 25 seconds that your dashboard is loading is generating those filters so that you can see them on your screen, I guess. And one of the solutions that we use frequently at Boston Scientific is a parameter in place of a quick filter, especially if it's a single value option that you want to select, right? If you're doing months, right, having a month parameter as opposed to a month filter on your date tends to work better. Calculations is the third component. Obviously, they're very powerful, but they aren't all created the same, right? Calculations are code, and the way we write our code, the length of our code, all affects performance. So in general, and this is true of Tableau, it's true of any system, Booleans and numbers or integers tend to be a lot faster than string calculations. So if you can, say, set your parameters to be 1, 2, 3, and display something on the screen that's the value that you're trying to associate with office furniture, technology, and office supplies, if we're talking super strong, that will really improve the speed of your calculations. Avoid calculations across a blend. Obviously, for some situations, you can't avoid that, but calculations across a blend take more time. And then this is something that I didn't even really think of until it was written out, and this is on Tableau's website, but use else if instead of else if. Else if creates a nested if statement. Else if just continues your existing if statement. So nested ifs take considerably longer than one if statement. And finally, layouts and visualizations make up about 10% of your dashboard performance. Although in the demo that I'm going to show you, it probably makes up more like 25%. I'm still working on that. But obviously, Tableau is designed to visualize, right? BizSQL is the language that it uses. It draws pictures. It's really good at it. But drawing too many pictures at once or drawing the wrong kinds of pictures causes Tableau to slow down. So if you limit the number of worksheets or visualizations on a dashboard, you tend to get better performance. Just every sheet that you have to render creates a lag. Tableau does a decent job of multi-threading some of their processes, but sometimes they can't. And so more visualizations is always slower than fewer. We try to stick to 4 visualizations for any one dashboard, but again, in the example that I'm going to give, we don't do a good job of that. We're still whittling that down. Size is something that I didn't think about when I first started using Tableau. I thought automatic was great, right? Whatever size screen I'm on, it's going to render to that. That takes time and it takes energy and it takes horsepower to do that. So if you can think about a fixed size to your dashboard, that's going to really improve kind of the final rendering times and performance. And then if you float things, float containers, float pictures, float filters, that tends to also speed up performance because Tableau just draws it where it needs it. It doesn't have to figure out where to draw it. You've already told it where to draw. So as I mentioned, order matters. This is Tableau's order of operations. I've crossed out extract filters because we're not talking about extracts today. But Tableau processes from the top down like a funnel. First data source filters, then context filters, and then it tells you kind of what calculations it's doing when. After context filters, dimensions, measures, and table calcs. So in the example that I'm going to give of poor performance, I had somebody calculating the top 7 dimensions, or top 7 of a dimension, and then putting that on the data source filter. So Tableau was having to go down here, calculate it, go back up here, filter it, and it was this vicious loop. And you kind of saw that on the screen I started to share. I can't get out of that loop right now. But
Charlie,
yeah,
there's a question
Oh,
from
sure.
another guy named Charlie.
Okay.
I believe it's a guy. Sorry if you're not a guy. A person named Charlie. He's asking, does the fixed scale with mobile devices, the fixed option?
So the fixed option on mobile devices obviously is harder, right? So if you're in an organization and everybody is given an iPad or everybody's given an iPhone, you can tend to do more fixed for mobile. The device designer, the layout options, if you can, it tends to fix a mobile device. If you want to do a range is better than just automatic, because Tableau doesn't have to think outside of a range. It just says, what's going to optimally fit within this range. But that's a very good question. Mobile devices, the way that Tableau does that device designer, you have to select kind of a general size, and it just renders to that size. But if you want to be a little more responsive, there's a range option when you're setting up your dashboard sizes. Good question. So that was all about what performance is and how we can affect it. How do we measure it? I'm surprised by how many people don't realize that Tableau has performance recording in it. Under your help menu, there is a section on performance, and you can do performance recording. And Tableau takes a look at every click that you do, from opening the dashboard to closing it. And it then generates some metadata about that and spits out its own Tableau dashboard for you. It gives you a timeline. It gives you the events in terms of, the timeline shows you the events in the order that they happened. The events section shows you which events took the longest. And then if you click on a specific kind of query in the event section, that will show up in your query window. But this is very, very helpful for understanding which sections of your dashboard are taking the longest to render. Is it a query that's a problem? Is it a query that's associated with one of the sheets and not all of them on your dashboard? But it's very, very powerful to use. And once you learn how to read it, you can very quickly assess where your performance needs some tuning. So connecting to a data, these are the events, right? I won't read everything here. I'll happy to send out the slides, or you can pause the recording on YouTube and read through this. But these are the different things that spit out of a performance recording. I did take creating extract out of this list because nope, it is still on there. Generating extract, good. So connecting the data, sorting the data, generating your extract, completing the layout, executing the query, blending your data, geocoding, server rendering, building the view, and uncompressing a workbook, which you can't really do anything about that. So we don't worry about that. Before I move on to kind of live examples, anybody have any questions? Just feel free to unmute yourself, because I don't have access to my chat window right now.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Do some of these recommendations apply to extracts also, or do you find it's more pertinent to live connections only?
That is a great question. Calculation, filtering, all of that is the same kind of bang for your buck with an extract. Extracts just tend to be optimized for Tableau, and people don't tend to do things so horribly that you worry about performance. Although I have seen examples of that. So one of my roles at Boston Scientific is I'm a Tableau doctor. Right? It's a title that's been given to me. I didn't earn it. But I have people contacting me for 15 to 30-minute appointments on a regular basis to troubleshoot what's wrong, right? To help them figure out a calculation, or to do some layout options, or to choose the right chart type. And once a week or so, I'll get somebody saying, why is my dashboard slow? Right? And so this is an example of something that has come to me. I didn't design it, although it is beautiful, but it is painfully slow. 2 out of 3 times, our live connection actually fails. Boston Scientific uses SAP HANA. It's an in-memory based database. It's kind of like a Ferrari, right? That when it's running great, it runs great, but the moment that it's in the shop, it's really broken. So this dashboard was given to to me to take a look at the general performance. You can see that it's kind of sectioned out here: employee engagement, voluntary attribution, or voluntary attrition, right? This is all kind of Boston Scientific, and I've scrubbed some of these numbers, by the way, but this is Boston Scientific customer care team. And if I could ever get out of this, no Tableau server user found. Oh, it doesn't even recognize who I am. No wonder it's not rendering. So we might need to take care of that here in just a second. But as I scroll down, there are sections upon sections upon sections upon sections, right? This breaks the rule of more than 4 on a screen, right? So that was kind of my first option. As I mentioned, somebody was also, for a handful of these charts, creating a set and then going up to a data source filter. And to top it off, that set was dynamic, right? There was a parameter that selected which set you were going to create. So it hit 3 different areas in the order of operations. And that was the biggest performance drain that I found. So what did I do to fix this? First and foremost, I divided this into 4 dashboards right away, right? Rather than 1 dashboard, I sectioned it out. And I'm still not done slicing and dicing it because it's still slower, right? This is okay. It's not great yet. So I sliced it into smaller segments. And then I looked at my performance recording and saw that all of the order stuff was the stuff that was working the slowest, right? And God forbid, that's actually our primary data source in here. So if I exit out of this and go into, say, one of these sheets, right? What I found on this particular data source was, again, that set filter. And then they didn't have other filters in place that I thought they should. This particular data set, and let's just open a new sheet and explore it here a little bit. I've filtered it down already, but if I look at my row count, please connect. Okay, I'm getting 23, almost 24 million rows back, right? And believe it or not, before I filtered this down, that was even worse. So this data set, as I started to explore it, had way too many fields, but it also had 5 years of data in there. It had the current year and the 4 trailing years. The point of their dashboard was never to look at year-over-year trends beyond what happened last year. So immediately filtering this down got me fewer rows. I was still at 24 million, but before that it was like 89 million, 100 million. It was huge. The other thing I did was, rather than calculate those sets as a filter, let's quickly, for those of you who don't know, when you are creating a filter, say on dimension or here on division, you can do a top filter, right? So rather than doing a top filter like that and pushing that up to the database, what I did instead was I created sets that did that. So here's a set. It gets calculated lower than what it would otherwise, but it gets calculated in the right place of the order of operations. Still the exact same top set that they wanted, but now that I have an in and out, the data source isn't worrying about what that is. Now I've generated it, and I just filter out those that are out of the set. The final thing that I did was I looked at the way that the original user did some calculations with the parameter swap of metrics. So there was something in here called order lines. And there's a parameter in here for order lines, but there was also like an order lines calculation. Let's find that. Orders for lines. I cleaned that up to be a very simple if statement, and I also changed their parameters to be an integer. So their parameters were a string that said borders or lines, and basically I just said, you know, if it's a 1, give me my first measure, else give me my second measure, and that sped things up as well. Like I said, we're not perfect yet. This does take a while to render, and I'm not done with everything. We'll see how quickly this renders now for everybody now that I'm like actually sharing my screen. There are still, and you can kind of see it as it renders, there are a lot of charts on here that take just a heartbeat to render, right? Most of them are down to a second, 2 seconds, but the fact that there are so many sheets on this particular dashboard, right? These are all this, here are all the sheets. It's like still 25 sheets, right? I got to work on that. But that's the general process that I go through when I'm asked to clean up performance. And hopefully that's an example of some of the suggestions that I made during my presentation.
Awesome.
Questions?
Question.
Yes.
So I don't work in servers anymore currently, but I remember, so this is referring to when you're talking about like you can build multiple dashboards, or you can have one dashboard where people have permissions to see certain row level data, and using, so you can build like groups based on their like Tableau IDs. And so I've done that, but I was wondering if I'm sure that at Boston Scientific, like data is super important, or data security is super important. So like if a viewer is allowed to see certain rows like that, and is there ways to make sure that they can't like download the full data set, even though what they're seeing is what they're like allowed to see? Or is there any concern with them being able to pull more than what they're seeing somehow?
It's a great question, and that's one of the reasons that we went with a live connection. All of the security for us happens in the database. So you can't withdraw any information that you don't have permissions to see.
Okay.
You're right with extracts. If we don't set up our security correctly within Tableau, or somebody gets a little creative, it's possible that they could get at some of the underlying data that they shouldn't have permissions to see. We avoided that entirely with the way that we set things up. It created other problems, right? Because our performance is more of a challenge. But
so permissions follow through. So you're pulling from the database, and they're coming into Tableau, and you're publishing a dashboard, and that permission for like, you know, every cell follows all the way through until the dashboard. Is that correct?
yeah, let me quickly show you our data setup here. So I don't know enough about SAP HANA to say exactly how this is designed, but we create calculated views from fact tables. So it's a fact table plus some security that's put on it. And what happens is we get a field, a security field, that spits out with the query. And our constraint is that the Tableau user must equal this LAN ID. So it finds out who you are before it even starts the query. And it's just as simple as user LAN ID equals username.
But that's for the builder, correct?
This is for the builder. The end users do not have access to this. In fact, most builders don't even have access to this. This is an administrator sort of level where we enforce that security before we publish a data source.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then actually you did bring up one other point between desktop and server. If it's slow in desktop, it's going to be slower on server. Right? At least that's my experience. And it's not a knock on the product. It's just you're going to 3 places rather than 2.
Well, can I add one more thing too that I was thinking about while you were going through this is one thing that I've used before too to speed things up is like never pull a constant that you know to be consistent. So if you are pulling like a lot of if you're pulling something from your database and something that you're pulling is a constant, if you can like avoid pulling it and adding it into your calculation, if it's just like a number or something like that, would you suggest that?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So if there's a rate that you know is always applied, having that as a parameter, right, that calculates kind of on its own, that will allow you to set that fixed rate or that constant value. That's one of the ways that we get around that, as opposed to having that constant value as a column in the data source and having to pull that extra column. You can also hard code it in a calculation, and I've also seen that done as like a secondary data source, right? An Excel sheet with one cell in it that is just a number.
Yeah, that would be a good idea too if it was something that maybe was updated yearly or something.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Good questions. Yes, Brad.
Oh,
Waving
Charles,
at
I
me.
just want to, hi. Yeah, I just want to ask, do you allow any of your, users who are making the Tableau reports, filter the data themselves using like custom SQL so that they don't need to, hit 20 billion records, especially if they're only reporting aggregated data?
Yeah, exactly. In some instances, we will do that. And some of our data sources are secured less than others, right? Or there's less of a security concern than other data sources. So if it's an application server, where it's like an internal app and it's survey data internally, right? And the users are anonymous. We don't really care who sees the results, right? People can write as much custom SQL as they want. If custom SQL is needed, we would probably have a developer do that, like one of the administrators do that, and then publish that data source out to somebody. But that is something that we do from time to time. Sometimes that actually gets in our way. I had somebody who wrote some custom SQL last week that was just ugly, right? It's just bad SQL, right? And that slowed it down worse than anything else. Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie. I was curious, do you have any like Tableau server admin roles at Boston Scientific? Do they tap you for that?
They used to tap me more for that. I'm still a site administrator for 2 of our 5 sites that I know about. I think there's 1 or 2 other super secret sites that I'm not even allowed to know exist. But I'm still a site administrator for a couple of them. And the way that we manage most of that is through Active Directory groups that I don't have to own, right? So we set it up once, people get added or subtracted from an Active Directory group, and we're done. So occasionally somebody needs a new project now, and we fire that up.
Cool. I was just
So
curious.
I try to avoid server admin stuff as much as possible.
How many hats you're wearing over there?
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. That was some good info. Let's see.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So we have 10 minutes left. I have a hard stop at 4 to take my daughter to dance. So let's take the next 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes maybe, and open it up to the group. If anybody has any, quick little tips or tricks that they have learned or found recently, or any specific technical issues that you are just stuck on. It's like literally like free consulting. Basically, we've got some great minds on the call today. So use it or lose it. Anybody got anything?
I have something to maybe throw out there. So we have some dashboards that are like the dates are filtered by parameters, and previously we had in our other technology an option to like click on a button that would filter to the year, and then to a quarter, and then they didn't have to go through this loading process when they changed the start date and when they were just going to go change the end date, and then it loads twice. I guess I've seen some stuff with like actions for setting parameters maybe that I was thinking about, but any other suggestions on maybe how to set the parameters with like one click.
That's a tough one.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Pete, this is Sam Epley here. One thing I think you could potentially do if you know what those potential default selections are, if you built that into either a series of buttons, which then you can control parameters with parameter actions, you could carry out multiple parameter switches all at once.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And just starting to scratch the surface, so I'll have to give that a shot.
Sure.
Are you looking to set the start and the end date at the same time?
Yeah, that's kind of the ask. Like they always want to look at Q1, and there's a lot of different users who have different needs though. So not everybody wants to just start with Q1. So is there a way to get to that date range quickly with a single click? And we have a lot of data, so there's that loading time, which you've provided some good tips for maybe improving.
So one of the things that I've done in the past is create a simple visualization that is my date range. So a couple of people want to look at month to date versus quarter to date, and they want to look at different quarters or different months. So it's as simple as building out, 4 circles that are Q1, 2, 3, and 4. Right? You just put that, say, on a row, and set the circle and put that on your text, and then you can use that as an action filter or as a parameter filter. So it can drive parameters as well as filter down your data, and they tend to load pretty quickly.
A lot of things to try. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I'm curious if well, somebody just posted some code, looks like, from Nolan. Nolan is our presenter for March, our one lined up presenter. So Nolan, would you like to explain this? Unmute yourself and give some narrative. Oh, he says office mates are being too loud. Okay. He says if you have a parameter where the end user enters a string value to filter to a dimension, it can be an issue if the character case doesn't match between what is in the data source and how the user ends it. Users can also copy and paste out of an email and catch trailing or leading spaces, which can cause a similar problem. You can account for that using trim upper parameter name and field name. So good call out. Thank you. Okay. And we don't have to, talk about this, but if anybody has experience using connecting Tableau to at-scale views, I would love to just have a quick conversation, or if you do have any like just advice or what your experience was like with that, whether it was troublesome or not. I'd love to hear that. What else? Anybody have anything else they want to chit chat about?
This is Noelle. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, hi, Noelle.
Hi. So this is my first time joining the group, by the way. Our company just got Tableau in the last year, and we're working on converting a lot of our existing reporting into Tableau. And one thing we do a lot with our company is we like to look at a lot of data year over year. So a lot of 3-year comparisons, and we're struggling with finding ways to visualize things that aren't just a huge plethora of bar graphs. And I don't know if anybody has any good suggestions about how we can show 3-year comparisons of data in a more interesting way.
Well, I say never underestimate the bar graph. It can be can be the thing that's most effective. So you're just talking about like, how you've got, maybe a bar for each year and it's a little
Exactly.
bit confusing.
Well, so our company handles claims. So we're looking at claim counts year over year, claim financial values year over year, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. So the question is like, what else could you use?
Yeah, because our other reports are just full of bar graphs, and Tableau has a lot of great options to show things in more interesting ways, but we're trying to not just regurgitate the same exact graphs, just in a slightly different way.
Well,
and we have been using some of the tree maps and that kind of thing too. That's been one way we can kind of dodge that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Like, ask yourself the question, like, is a bar chart the best way to portray this information? And if the answer is yes to that, then I wouldn't, spend too much time trying to be different, just to be different from the old reports. But there's always the area charts and the line charts, and I think you want to be careful to not get too, too sophisticated, too crazy with something that's as simple as a year over year. But what do other people think?
It's another kind of bar, but a bullet. So one line represents this year, and then two reference lines would represent the previous years.
Mm-hmm.
Very quickly compare how close you are to previous years.
Yeah, or could you do like a lipstick?
Yeah, that's a great
maybe?
suggestion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Kriebel has, I think that he still has this out on Tableau Public, like what chart to choose sort of thing. It's very helpful for me when I'm stuck about how to visualize certain data points. I go back and I take a look at his work and say, oh yeah, I really need a funnel for this, or a lollipop, or something else, right? And often it's I need a bar, right? So.
Yep.
Awesome, thank you. And I have gotten that. Yeah, someone else recommended isolating the change, which we have been doing too, and people are really responding well to that. But I'll definitely take more of a look at that visual vocabulary site. I've definitely bookmarked that in the past, and it's probably time to bring that back up. So
yeah,
thank you.
Thanks for posting that, Katrina, and thanks for asking the question, Noelle.
Boot camp is a great place to meet hot men. I go for a 3-mile power walk around the neighborhood because I'm still trying to lose weight, although this bakery that just opened is not helping.
Ash, it sounds like you're going on a bike ride there, Ash.
Here we go. Somebody was watching some TV or something. All right, let's see what other comments we have down here. That Rajesh asks, has anyone used SharePoint lists connection from Tableau? The reason I'm asking is I was able to connect to SharePoint list from Tableau and unable to create an extract. By Pete.
Yeah, I'm struggling to create a connection between a SharePoint list and Teams that gets updated. I haven't figured it out. I'm new to this SharePoint list situation, and I don't have a explanation. I didn't know that you couldn't create extracts if you're connected to a SharePoint list. Are you having performance issues? Is that why you need an extract? I'm assuming.
Trisha, I'm gonna let you close this out. I gotta run. I'm getting the book to drive.
Yeah, that's fine.
Bye, guys.
Rajesh, you want to give me some more info? Oh, you're really quiet. If you can come closer to your mic.
Sorry, does that sound better?
Yes, better.
Okay, sorry. So basically I was trying to connect to the SharePoint list, and one of my colleague who works in different department, he was able to extract the data from the SharePoint list. And I'm using the same links, same methods, but I'm not able to, because when in Tableau, when you're connecting to the SharePoint list, I think there is a limitation of how many lookup fields you can use. That's what the SharePoint is restricting to. So I removed all the fields, as many. I use 1 or 2 fields, still having the same issue. I'm not unable to get the extract.
I see.
I just wanted to see if anybody has any thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I don't have a solution. I bet I'll have the same problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if I do some research and figure anything out, I will reach back out to you. I'm just going to note your name here.
Yeah.
I'm on Tableau's website right now, and it says
Yeah,
that
what's
the
it
only way
say?
to connect to a SharePoint list is with an extract.
Yeah, exactly.
I see.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't use Alteryx here, so that's another thing. Thanks, Eric, and others who was mentioning to use Alteryx, but we don't use Alteryx or at the company where I work. So thank you. I am basically using an health systems automate is an automate tool. What it does is connect to the SharePoint and loads directly the data from SharePoint to SQL Server. Then I use that SQL Server data into the Tableau.
I see.
Yeah, thanks, Katrina. I think I checked on the SharePoint admin as well, and the permissions looks fine to me. I'm not sure what's going on. So thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. We'll
No
be
problem. Yep.
all right. I think it's time to run, so we can probably head out. Charles, thanks again. Great.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you.
All right. We'll chat with everyone next month.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Yep. Bye.